this is your slot. This is a European dialogue on internet governance, and that implies that not just sort of the talking heads in the chairs, but actually all of you. The Internet Governance Forum has always been defined by the fact that often the people in the audience are just as expert, if not more expert, than the people on the stage. So this is your moment. I think the official title of this session is Embracing the Digital Revolution, or Evolution, because there's an R in brackets. And it's to hear your expectations. So let's think about expectations, not just for this event, but also for internet governance dialogue. One of the things that Sandra highlighted was the youth delegation, but I think one of the challenges for the internet governance dialogue is also to be inclusive and to welcome more people into the fold each time. So could you put up your hand if this is your first EuroDIG? Ooh. Oh, so, okay. This was actually, this was partly a trap, because those people who keep your hands raised, please. I would like somebody, oh, hang on. Come on, there were more of you. Thank you. So, I've got a very valuable prize here for somebody who wants to take up, and I'd like a newcomer to EuroDIG to come and join me here and give me your thoughts, expectations, either for what this event is going to bring to you, or else what you would like from internet governance. Could I have somebody to volunteer with this wonderful prize? You want to come forward? Okay, you're asking for it because I'm going to come and pick on somebody. Oh, please, come up. Shall we all give him a huge round of applause? So I got to, this is like buses. This is what British people say, buses. You wait for one and then, well, two come along at once. So, no, you're not getting away that. So are we going to toss up for it? Who's going to go first? Please. Introduce yourself, because I'm left-handed.
Hello, I'm from Slovenia. My name is Doman. I'm coming from the NGO sector. I'm running a Citizen D Institute, which deals with internet governance, net neutrality, and battle for, I guess you could say, cybersecurity and privacy. This is my first EuroDIG. I've been engaged in local IGF events, but this is my first time, so thank you for having me. What I'm hoping to learn, I guess it's obviously one is exchange ideas and hear from other representatives within the region and outside the region what's going on there, and maybe form up, I don't know, to get some ideas about how to tackle challenges, like I said before, net neutrality and other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you need a round of applause, and I'm going to get your prize. Hold on a sec. This is very smooth here. You see, I wasn't lying. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. And this is another newcomer to EuroDIG. Please tell us about your expectations and hopes, and introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Maria Farrell. I'm from Interconnect Communications, and I promised Emily yesterday in the bar that I would do this. So
this is completely spontaneous.
So I've been involved in other internet things for a while, and my big interest at the moment is the Internet of Things. And it is so clear to me that we're not going to get where we need to get on it if we don't absolutely embrace the multi-stakeholder way forward and get everybody at the table, and have everybody who's affected by a decision to be part of the decision. So that's kind of why I came, and I think there's going to be a lot of that, but it's my first time, so let's see. Great,
thank you very much. So from our first two speakers, we've heard about the sort of the almost the classic. Is it right to call it a sort of a standoff, or some sort of clash between security and privacy? It's certainly often perceived in that way. and also Internet of Things as an important emerging issue. Is there anybody else who'd like to come to the stage and highlight a key theme that you think that we should be focusing on in this dialogue? So there are different ways that you can come up. There are mics in the audience, but I would actually like to try and break down this sort of separation between audience and up on the stage. In fact, if necessary, would you like to come up? Please do. Thank you. Please introduce yourself. Thank you very much for coming up.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, I don't know where to stop. Anyway, I'm pretty nervous because it's my first EuroDIG. I come here as an individual. I'm Deborah, I'm Italian but from UK. I came here with my organization, with an NGO involved in human rights, which is EuroMerdnet. But I'm here also as an activist of the No Hate Speech Movement campaign of the Council of Europe. And I'm here with Menno because we like to speak about we come here. So I let Menno start and then I can...
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Menno Ettema. I work also with the No Hate Speech Movement campaign, which is a youth campaign against hate speech online and for human rights online. And it's a youth campaign of the Council of Europe. And I think what brings us here is the wish to see EuroDIG as a dialogue platform with all the multi-stakeholders. And I think for us as a youth campaign, it's very clear that we're looking for, okay, how do we secure human rights online and for young people to enjoy the full benefits of internet, because it has lots of opportunities to share and democratic processes and we're all part of it. But we also notice that hate speech really pushes out certain groups because it targets certain group and they're not part of this process and they're not fully benefiting of the opportunities and being part of the democratic process.
And are you looking at the impact on individuals of hate speech, or are you looking at ways of curbing hate speech, which is your focus?
Yeah, actually, we're as Menno said, we're really kind of also proud to be an inclusive group ourselves. It's a youth campaign made by youth people for youth people. And we are here to initiate this dialogue because I heard a lot talking about inclusivity, accessibility. So let's create this favor platform for everybody. So we are here to have this dialogue with everybody. So come to us. Let's initiate this dialogue, because to make internet a more accessible and inclusive environment, we should start giving these tools, so giving education, training, and this is one of the main aim of our campaign. So we are talking to individuals, to groups, to everybody, because we want to be inclusive. So it's a kind of a general.
Thank you.
Just to add, I think our main work is human rights education, also in the online space. But at the same time, we notice that young people are reporting and then they don't see follow-up. And that's very demotivating in a democratic process.
Yes.
So I think it's an interesting moment to ethically discuss how do we report, what's the consequences, and how can that be transparent so that young people understand that it does make sense to be part of this process of reporting and governing our space.
Yes, and I suppose it's how do you take effective action without curbing legitimate freedom of expression at the same time?
Yes.
Exactly, but preventing harm. Yeah. Thank you very much, and let's give these people a round of applause. Shall I take that, please? Would anybody else like to come up and join the dialogue? I think that's you, is it? Goran Marby, isn't it? It's the new CEO of ICANN. Would you like to come to the stage? Okay.
You said you wanted, I'm always on stage.
Fine. So okay, well, I'll come and join you then. Welcome to EuroDIG.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say hello. My name is Goran Marby. I'm the new CEO and president of ICANN since 2 weeks, so please don't ask too hard questions to me yet. And I take full responsibility of any bureaucrats to get any new domain names, as the previous speaker mentioned. I got a question yesterday of why I'm here and what do I expect. ICANN is about a multi-stakeholder model. A multi-stakeholder model could be seen as a long and tedious process because democracy takes time. And many times you often started, where does the process actually start? And it actually starts at events like this, and that's why we are so proud to be an institutional partner to this as well, because even if the discussions here doesn't give any immediate effect, it will form the discussions coming for the next layer, and then it will come into the policy work. So I don't have any expectations out of this, more than the fact that I'm very happy to be here and proud to be a part of this. What the outcome of it will be is something that you form. It's nothing that I get involved in at all. But the discussion you're forming now will shape the discussions we're going to have about internet governance over the next couple of years. And that will also, in the end, lead to the ICANN environment. So thank you very much for having me here, and good morning.
Thank you very much. So while I'm down here, thank you. So is somebody standing up at the back because they're finding a seat or because they'd like to say something? Thank you, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, moderator. My name is Jarosław Ponder. I'm from the International Telecommunications Union. Many of you know me from the WSIS forum, which is an annual forum to facilitate the implementation of the WSIS action line supporting the achievement of the SDGs. But today, I'm here in my other capacity as the directing person of the European Coordination for the ITU, which has several regional initiatives mandated and defined by the countries as the priorities for the implementation during the 4 years. Many of those initiatives are touching upon the subjects which will be discussed here. So therefore, in order to ensure that we are doing the things in the way that we are taking into account all debates at the European level, it's important to us also to take a look at this, what is discussed in the multi-stakeholder and bottom-up approach, and to see how we can transform this into the implementation in the real sense. In the field of broadband implementation, in field of measurement of the quality of services while implementing the infrastructure, but also in other areas like accessibility, cyber security, in particular child and right protection, or innovation and the youth. So I'm looking forward to listening to many debates here, and looking forward also to discussing with the potential partners supporting the implementation at the regional level of the regional initiatives for our 43 countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I've got a lady there, so please, the floor is yours, and then I'm going to come to you. So happily you can have this.
Valentina Pellitzer from One World Platform, Bosnia and Herzegovina, the usual NGO. So my expectation, it goes with real access to languages, the small languages, the small Albanians, the small Moldovan, the small Romanian when we compare with many, to have really a borderless internet, which is not geolocation, migrants, and to have a queer internet where to be a majority doesn't mean that you are a minority, and when tradition is not used as culture, and where intermediaries do not take only the data and treasure them, but they really take the responsibility they have, especially when they want to play the internet and pretend to be the internet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I've got a gentleman down here, and then I think there's a whole cluster of people over here. So why don't you go first as you have the microphone, and then I'm going to come over this side of the audience. Okay, please.
Good morning all. I am Dirk van Eekhout. I am the thematic coordinator for information policy for the Council of Europe. Actually, this is also my first EuroDIG, and I came here and security asked me, "What's in your bag?" And I said, well, only to declare actually a 800-page study on filtering, blocking, and takedown of illegal internet content. I only have 2 minutes, so I will just make a resume in 3 lines. First of all, the Europe we're talking about is not only about 28 countries. In Strasbourg, at the Council of Europe, it's 47. That's one thing. And second, this study, on which there is an important side event, is a game changer. Why? You might be interested, what's the state of affairs on the freedom of expression in your country? Second, business. If you're looking into doing business in the 47 member states, you perhaps would like to know how the legal situation is. Third, you NGOs and people who are concerned with the future of the internet, you would like to draw perhaps conclusions. What should be the next step? What should be indicators of internet freedom? So this was the present in my bag from Strasbourg. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the 800-page study, that's quite a weight to carry around with you. Thank you very much. And then I'll come to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm board member at EuroDIG Europe, the European Students Forum. But the reason I'm here at the moment is because I'm also a fellow at the New Media Summer School, which is the side event for young people organized previously to the EuroDIG and to educate young people to internet governance processes. We've been discussing in the last few days, and we really look forward to bring these conclusions to you on how to involve more young people on this process. Because we call about how to embrace the digital revolution, we call on multi-stakeholderism, but these stakeholders, like we must be like in an equal players. And in this sense, we fear that first, we are not as many of us, and secondly, we are maybe not as included, as involved as it is. So we will have different sessions over here, and some of them will even talk about the field of empowerment through education and how making young people become these active players in the field. And of course, we have our ideas in the topic, but this is not enough. Because with this, we will need your help and we will need your ideas on how to bring young people into the discussion. This is not my first EuroDIG, this is my second one. Last year, Sofia was an amazing experience. Now EuroDIG has come to my city. I had to come back for sure. And I was also involved in the planning meeting, and I remember very well this long and never-ending discussion on how we came with the name of embracing the digital revolution. If we embrace something, it means that we take ownership, and for this, we all, as internet users, need to take equal ownership. So in this sense, I'm really looking forward to these discussions. I really look forward to see how my other fellows will be raising all our voices in this sense. So thank you very much, and enjoy these days in Brussels.
Thank you. Can I just ask you one question? This is your second EuroDIG. Have you been to the international IGF yet?
Not yet, because of lack of time and money.
But I think that this highlights actually the purpose and value of some of these regional dialogues, is that people such as yourself, who might never go to, well, I'm sure you will go to an IGF one day, but you know that there is a value in the regional dialogue, and that it's bringing people in who might not travel to the international meeting. And I think for those who do travel to the international meeting, that's something to bear in mind. So I got loads of hands up. As you're nearest the mic, I'm going to go to you first, and then I'm going to distribute some microphones.
Thank you.
To queue up.
John Carr from the European NGO Alliance for Child Safety Online. I want to make a point about a really important development within the European Union. I appreciate the European Union is not the whole of Europe, not by a very long way, but it certainly is a major chunk of it. And since the last EuroDIG, in fact only 6 months ago, the European Union finally agreed a new general data protection regulation. Now, prior to and this will become law in every one of the 28 member states, which, by the way, I believe and certainly hope will continue to be mine. If you haven't guessed it from my accent, I'm a Brit. So it will become law in about June of 2018, and will apply, therefore, in every one of the 28 member states. Prior to the GDPR being agreed, with the exception of Spain, there was in effect a single age at which a young person was considered to be old enough to decide for themselves whether or not they could join an online service, download a particular app, or whatever. That age was 13. Rightly or wrongly, it was 13. It was a single age that essentially applied across the whole of Europe, and indeed globally almost. The GDPR has changed that. It has changed the age, the default age at which a young person can decide for themselves, that's to say without parental consent, whether or not to join a particular social networking platform or download an app or things of this kind. It's changed it to 16, but it has also given member states the power to choose other ages below the age of 16 down to the age of 13. So we now have 4 potential ages. In fact, we have more than 4, because an individual member state could decide idiosyncratically, I suppose, to make 15 and a half, 14 and a half, 13 and a half. So there you are. This is going to complicate a whole set of issues quite considerably, both in the context of privacy, and the way in which apps, the Internet of Things, a whole range of things will operate in the future. I appreciate it probably happened too late to feature in a prominent way for discussion in this agenda for this particular EuroDIG, but I hope in the discussions that we have over the next couple of days, we will all bear this in mind. And I certainly think that this time next year, at the next EuroDIG in Tallinn, we will be able to have a more substantive debate on it. And that's an important thing to happen, because it certainly did not happen in the processes leading up to the European Union deciding on this new law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got you, there's a growing sort of queue over there. So I'm also aware of people waiting here. So if we just keep our remarks sort of nice and crisp, then I can include as many people as possible.
But first of all, I'd like to introduce to myself, in case you don't know me, although I know quite many of you. My name is Maciej Tomaszewski. I used to be a policy officer responsible for EuroDIG in DG Connect. It was a great pleasure. Now it's a great pleasure to see EuroDIG in Brussels. It's absolutely amazing to see all of you, like 5 minutes walk from my apartment. It's really strange. I'm very happy that right now EuroDIG is in a very good hands of Cristina Monti and the Internet Governance team, although on a daily basis they call me a traitor. What I would like to tell you is very briefly about my current job, which might be of your interest. Basically, right now I'm DG Justice, working on fundamental rights. Last year, my unit organized an annual colloquium on fundamental rights, which focused on anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim speech, and all of that, which led to very concrete policy initiatives. And that's why I would like to very warmly invite you to participate in this year's public consultation, which leads to the annual colloquium on media pluralism and democracy. So, of course, the input from internet policy stakeholders would be extremely crucial for us. The public consultation is open until 14th of July. There are 40 questions, but if you want to reply to only one, just with facts, good one, empirics, we are more than happy to have an input from you. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Lynn, I'm coming to you now. Thank you very much. And then I'm going to come over to you guys, so get ready. And then I'm going to come to this side of the room. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Lynn Sainamore. I was recently appointed in March of this year as the chair of the Internet Governance Forum Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, or IGF-MAG for short. I'd like to thank, and I'm also represented, the IGF Secretary is also represented here by Chengetai Masengo, who's just over there, and I'm sure you all know him. He's been a fixture in Internet governance activities for quite some time now. And we'd like to thank the EuroDIG, the organizers, the hosts, and the sponsors for this event. Clearly, we'd like to thank the participants, because while the first 3 are needed or helpful, the participants, of course, are essential. I want to talk a little bit, and I know it wasn't quite the purpose of this section.
Doesn't matter.
Very flexible. There were quite a few new people in the audience, so maybe just a quick sort of focus on the IGF, and then about 2 of the sort of key activities over the coming months. The IGF is a unique forum, just as EuroDIG here is a unique forum. It was actually convened and is convened under the UN Secretary General. The MAG chair is appointed by the UN Secretary General. And I have to say, I also feel kind of compelled to point out that in 11 years of Internet Governance Forum, this is the first time the position of chair has been held by someone who is non-governmental and by a female. So I'm not sure if you'd call that evolution or revolution, but I think it also goes to show how much the multi-stakeholder model is really being accepted around the world as well. So as I said, the IGF is actually convened by the UN Secretary General. It's actually administered, or its institutional home is by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA. But it is a multi-stakeholder activity, and its processes are largely multi-stakeholder. They're still evolving, frankly, as any of our multi-stakeholder processes are, because this is a journey. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about was the upcoming IGF forum and then the retreat, because I think that's of pretty high interest to folks here, and I certainly hope both are. We're trying to re-energize and revitalize the IGF. We have a 10-year mandate ahead of us now, which is excellent. You know, we haven't had that sort of surety in the first decade of its existence, so I think that's really helpful. The MAG and certainly all the participants, the broader IGF community, are trying to help us figure out how we revitalize. So this year, for instance, in the program, the overall theme, which is enabling inclusive and sustainable growth, was actually established by the MAG. It clearly reflects the importance of the SDGs for the world as well. But all the sub-themes and sub-tracks are actually going to come from the workshop proposals that were submitted. And that closed this past Monday, and there's roughly 260 proposals in, which is either a record high or near record high. I also have to say it's also quite extraordinary because the MAG cycle this year is much compressed. We started in March as opposed to November, December of last year. So I think that's excellent. I think the second point is we're also looking at some innovative formats to re-energize it. And for those that haven't been able to participate in MAG meetings physically, we have fairly robust online participation mechanisms. We're trying to improve those. We're open to all suggestions. But you can still participate deeply and make a real impact and have your voice heard, even if you can't physically be present. And maybe just the last comment on that is to remind everybody that the IGF this year is December 6th through 9th, and it's in Guadalajara, Mexico. As we've been told many times, it's the home of marachis and tequila, so maybe one of those will encourage great participation. The other thing I want to talk about quickly is there's an IGF retreat, which is scheduled. With the WSIS plus 10 process late last year, with all the comments we've all heard about the need to kind of improve and advance the IGF, whether that's through the CSTD working group on IGF improvements or the WSIS plus 10 process or input that we get from all of you plus the IGF outputs itself, thought it would be helpful to actually get a small group of people together. Just maybe two more comments, and I know I'm going a bit long.
It's all right.
Here.
I'm going to give you a special dispensation for that.
Thank you. I will be. I'll be brief.
Brief.
The retreat is actually going to be scheduled at the back end of the MAG meeting in July. There is an open consultation which will actually focus on the retreat as well. We've tried to make it as open as possible. So I hope you'll all see the advancement in some of these processes. The agenda is posted online for public comment. The comments will go back publicly, not to just the Secretariat. We're looking for input, again, online. And then any of the outputs of the retreat will go through the appropriate set of consultations, community consultations. And those outputs will be public as well. We're also looking at doing some things to extend the participation during the retreat. There's a series of frequently asked questions which are posted on the website, which I hope will answer a lot of the other questions as well. The participants in the retreat have no standing beyond the retreat. It will go back to all the appropriate communities and processes such as this one. And I think that's really important. And maybe the final point there is that DESA really did go to some extremes to open up the participation, whereas the bulk of the participants that are coming from the three communities, the private sector, civil society, and technical community, the bulk of them are actually going to be directly appointed by those communities, which is those of you that are familiar with the MAG selection process, is slightly different. So I think everybody's embracing the multi-stakeholder model. And we're all looking to improve. It is a continual journey, as has been referenced earlier as well. So really like to just encourage people to participate, please, in all of the online requests in support of the retreat, and obviously the IGF itself as well. So thank you, and thank you for allowing me the extra time.
Lynn, just before you hand over the microphone, you talked about revitalising the process. That always raises alarm bells to some extent. Does that mean that it needed revitalising, that it was sort of, getting an energy loss? Why do you use that word?
So I don't think there was an energy loss. I think last year people were waiting in anticipation of the WSIS plus 10. What's going to come? Will it be renewed? There were strong signals fairly early on that it would be renewed, but it's not over till it's over. And would it be renewed for just 5 years? In fact, 10 years was a big vote of confidence. So I think it's more about the vote of confidence and the momentum we're building from then. Having said that, I would also say that I think in the last few years that participation from governments and senior policymakers has actually declined from the earliest days. And it is a multi-stakeholder forum. We don't need those other three communities to just talk amongst ourselves. We actually need senior policymakers and government officials to come participate and stay. So that's one of the areas clearly that we're trying to pick up the outreach and revitalize.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to take the person patiently waiting in the front of the queue there, and then I've got Khaled with his microphone here. And can I just thank you very much. You go ahead. Is anybody else waiting, thinking about asking questions? Can you just raise your hand? I just want to get a sense. Good. Particularly those at the back of the class. Are you lurking there because you don't want to say anything, or are you actually secretly wanting to join in? Anybody? Raise your hands. Okay, good. Well, we've got plenty of time, so we will get to you. Please go ahead, Marco.
I'll be brief. Hello, Marco Hoogwoning, RIPE NCC. We're the regional internet registry for Europe. We're the ones telling you to deploy IPv6, but that's not what I'm here for. Generally, we're tagged as technical community, as the way we tend to silo up the IGF and also EuroDIG. Question for the people who are still in the room. Who of you is responsible for running a piece of the internet? Whether that's a website or a network or a very large search engine? 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, okay. Really? Only? No?
Some behind you.
Okay. So, because I think that's important. Realize that the internet is not owned by somebody. It's a very decentralized system. So whatever you take back out of this discussion, please also apply it to yourself. Because even if you operate a really small little website, part of that puzzle is you. Even minor, but you can also make a difference. Whether it's accessibility, whether it's content, hate speech, we all have a little responsibility here in a room. So please also when discussing this, realize that you can too make a difference. Thanks.
Marco, thank you. Before you go away, come back. Do you think that you make that point about the technology being shared? This is a distributed system. Do you think it's still as distributed and decentralized as it was, say, 10 years ago?
I think it's even more. In our particular case, we see more and more members joining our organization. We see more and more members starting their own network and building their own little piece of infrastructure and become part of the internet. And recently with the IoT, it will only get bigger. There are so many people, there are so many startups, little businesses that become part of the internet, part of the ecosystem. And I think that we all have our little thing to do in keeping that ecosystem alive and making things better.
So just in the audience, how many people think that the internet is less centralized now than it was 10 years ago? 1, 2, few? How many people think it's more centralized? It's interesting. Maybe not technically. Maybe we're thinking about different things there. Thank you very much, Marco, and apologies for hijacking you with the question, if that's the right word. Khaled, thank you for waiting patiently.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Emily, by the way, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Khaled Fatal. I'm the chairman of the Multilingual Internet Group. And by the way, it is my first EuroDIG.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. You don't need to applaud. That's all right.
I'm afraid I gave away my prize already.
You can applaud if I come back again. But I tell you what, I want to invoke a couple of statements that have been made earlier on, which I think were very valuable, especially when we're talking about the multi-stakeholder model and internet governance and the bottom-up. and Megan and the new ICANN CEO, Joran, came in and spoke about process. And process is critical because unless you have a proper process, conclusions will not be as valuable or as valid. However, when I tell you, and please pay attention to this, when I tell you that you are in clear and present danger, do you have time for a conversation?
Me?
No, the question is, would you have time for a conversation or a debate when you are under clear and present danger? And the answer is no. So the bottom line approach, bottom up, and the multi-stakeholder process is critical for process. However, giving tribute to Paris and Brussels and what they've endured recently, we are under clear and present danger. And cybersecurity that everybody talks about, as important as it is, in the state of affairs we are in today, it's not the key word, it's survivability. So here's the challenge where decision makers have an opportunity to make a difference to their society. You've got to make sure your organizations and your nations are up to scratch in dealing with the new threats coming from the extremist organization groups, because they're not doing the traditional stuff that what we saw in Paris or in London. They're doing it online, and most of what they've been doing, you're not aware of yet. It has been happening. So, with that in mind, I truly want you to by the way, in the audience, raise your hand if you are a decision maker at your organization, chairman, CEO, or board member. I would say probably what? Emily, help me. 10%? Pass this information.
I think people have put their hands down. I saw quite a few hands.
Yep, 10% of the audience. That's pretty good, actually. Excellent, thank you. Reason why this is important, whatever business or organization or government entity you represent, you are in the front line to make your organization or government or country better secure and prepared for the new threats. And you got to keep in mind that it is about survivability today, no longer just about cybersecurity. And if you want to know more information, please ask me later.
Thank you very much, Khaled.
My pleasure.
Now, before going over to you, thank you for waiting. I'm going to pick on this lady here who put up her hand because you said you were planning on saying something, and we've heard from a lot of men. I want to encourage the women in the audience to also stand up.
Hi. I'm Ruth, and I'm kind of here for lots of different reasons, really. But I've actually been involved in coming to the EuroDIG in the last few years. But last year I attended remotely, and I also attended the IGF remotely with a group of us, former youth participants, other people that were interested, and we took part in the IGF remotely. And so I guess what I want to say is, there's empty seats here in this room, but there's people who are participating online, and how can we think about how we want to take it back and maybe think about other people that would like to contribute to these discussions, and how you could maybe share with them how they can remote participate, and also make sure that their comments are taken into the EuroDIG. Otherwise, I think it would be a really missed opportunity. And that's my question, I guess, is are there any remote participants that want to contribute to us what we're saying right now?
Well, that's a very, very good link to our remote. Do we have a remote moderator in the room? Yes, we do. Is there much going on online? Are we aware of people joining from hubs? I think a lot of people do participate in that way. So if you've got, do you want to have a few moments while we go to this very patient gentleman who's been standing behind the mic? Don't go away. So you prepare. I'll come back to you next. Sir, thank you for your patience. I'm going to come to you now. Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you. Can everybody hear like this?
Okay. Yeah. Just speak.
I'll try and be brief, because my wife always says that I speak too much. Now, I just want to go back a little bit, and before I do that, I would like to thank Mark van Wezenmaal for bringing up in his opening speech, for bringing up some very, very interesting points. I'll get back to that in a minute. First of all, I want to go back to the early 1990s. And if we think about how far the internet has come, it's fantastic. that we see this, and that we have an Internet of Things where we are looking at how can we make this effective, how can we, as we just heard, keep it secure, make sure that, you know, we are actually making good on some of the promises that this technology had in the 1990s. My wife happened to be one of the first web page designers, I suppose, since she was responsible very early in the 1990s for the first web page of the Global Environment Facility in Washington. So it's been a very interesting ride. However, to make good on some of the promises, if we have an Internet of Things and the technology works and we keep it secure as it was intended to be before it became the Internet, when we go back to ARPANET and before that, then the key word of survivability still rings very much a bell for those of us who are old enough. And yes, indeed, it's something that we need to look at. Survivability from a technical side, but also survivability from a human side.
Mm.
And the human side is where some of the promises have been fulfilled, and I think it's going to take a lot of work, and hopefully that is the expectation, we can also build partnerships here. Because most of the companies involved in internet and in internet technology have thrived in democracies. In other words, you have the human rights to assemble, to speak, to do, to undertake, to make money, and in that sense I would like to ask Mark van Wezenmolen, does he know actually what the monetary value is of a single bit on the internet? Can we calculate it? But in terms of democracy, that is, how do you put those human rights to work for everybody? And that for me is the interesting bit, because we were at the discussion in Budapest last year. I couldn't attend this year, on the e-democracy and e-governance days. And when you think about it, the internet, we can share a lot of information, we can store a lot of information, we can access it, but how do you make sure that it doesn't threaten us? That's one part of the story. The other part is, how can we all together build an internet of citizens that does what the internet promised to do, that is developed by society, evolved with the help of society, and how can we make sure that it continues to serve society? That's where Mark's remark came in, multilingualism, and also the lady who spoke earlier about the minority languages, as well as the reference that Mark made to multilingual. How can we make sure that everybody is involved? I don't want to deviate on okay, what are the threats? How can we all use specific tools that are already out there? The Internet Governance Strategy by the Council of Europe that was recently adopted at the end of March, I believe, in this year. How can we use e-democracy, e-governance recommendations that set out principles that allow us actually to, together with all these multi-stakeholders, to preserve the pluralism in which we thrive? I think that's a very important thing, that we do that together, and that we see together how we can make this happen in the interest of all of us.
Thank you very much. You've raised a number of issues relating to human rights, to multilingualism. I'd like to call on you, Frank LaRue, former UN rapporteur, to perhaps give us some guidance on how we can answer some of the questions posed by the last speaker about how we preserve what's good about the internet and our human rights and values.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for reminding me. I was the Special Rapporteur for Freedom of Expression, but today I'm speaking in my new position as Assistant Director General of UNESCO for Communication and Information. And I would like to say a couple of things. Number one is that we believe strongly in the regional forums like this, because we believe in the IGF, in the global forum. But we believe that the global worldwide forum has to be built from the agenda of the local regional forums or even the country forums, because it's from the reality up that comes up through the grapevine of civil societies that really we find out what's happening out in the world, and not only our own theoretical debates. I would like to mention a couple of priorities for us as UNESCO here today. Number one, which has not been mentioned, but for us is probably now the new framework and the major priority, is how to build all internet communication and all forms of communication into the 2030 agenda. The General Assembly last year approved the new strategic development agenda for the world. We believe it is comprehensible, it is clear, it was unanimously approved, and for the first time it was not a recipe for the developing nations coming from the developed nations or from the UN. It was a common agenda assumed by everyone and now complemented by the Paris Agreement on climate change. So I think this needs inevitably a constant systematic flow of information. Information to the policymakers, but also information to the local ground communities. One of the problems we had with the Millennium Development Goals is that the local communities never heard they existed and were never able to appropriate this agenda. Let's not make this mistake again. This is a wonderful agenda. Let's have all our ICTs and all our communications systems work on allowing some degree of flow, whether it be on economic issues, whether it be on water preservation, whether it be on giving women equal opportunities, or whether it be on climate change and global warming. All those issues, one by one, need specific elements of information and a permanent flow of information. That is defined in Goal 16, especially 1610, which took a long time to approve, but ultimately said that part of the basis for development is to guarantee the public access to information. Didn't say access to public information, said public access to information. This is a call to us here today because we're talking about internet, we're talking about media, we're talking about journalism in the new digital world. And I think about scientific research, but the flow of information. So that was message number one. Number two is we had the Connecting the Dots conference in Paris in UNESCO, and out of that came 4 agreements, the Rome Principles. So we want to see internets as a rights-based approach. And here I must defer a little bit. We don't see internet as the battlefield of today. I think this is a serious problem of conception because there is clearly a misuse of internet, from cyberbullying to sexual harassment of women to terrorist groups that are using it. But this does not necessarily make the internet a battlefield, and we should not fall into the trap of pitting security against the exercise of freedom of expression or privacy, because I think they complement each other. And there is a rhetoric in the world today trying to confront these issues, which is very, very dangerous. We have to guarantee national security with the guarantee of rights, of all the human rights, and especially of freedom of expression and of privacy. Privacy cannot be breached in the name of security. We're defending the individual. We're defending the individual, but we're also defending the democratic system. And this is part of the security element. So our first, on the Rome Principles, we want a rights-based approach to internet. On the second, on the O, we want the openness and neutrality of the internet. On the A, we want the accessibility and universality of the internet. And on the M, we want the multi-stakeholder dialogue, which everyone has referred. But here we have a specific proposal. Everyone agrees on talking about a multi-stakeholder dialogue, because as a statement, it becomes very easy to make. But we want to begin a study of the realities on the ground of whether policies in each country and regionally are made based on a multi-stakeholder dialogue. Because everyone talks about multi-stakeholder dialogue, and we can convene a meeting and have a nice coffee over a table, and we can all talk about it. But ultimately, are the decisions being made there with all sectors participating or not? Or the global policy orientations? And this is a study we plan to begin immediately. We're looking for partners, so anyone that's interested in partnering with UNESCO on this would be gladly received. And we want to look on the ground to key experiences of where multi-stakeholder dialogue has actually worked and has made a difference. That way we can make a reality that internet is at the service of all.
Thank you very much. Just hold on to the microphone for a second, because you mentioned the study on multi-stakeholder governance, because it occurs to me, I think I've heard a lot of people saying this, that you're now getting people who obviously don't agree with each other on a vast range of issues, all advocating multi-stakeholder governance. Do you think they're talking about the same thing?
That's the problem. I think we're all talking about getting people together.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about the level of decision-making that goes there. Because gathering people, convening individuals, convening sectors is something not always easy, something that sometimes is difficult. But I think to that level we have agreed. We have agreed that we must have dialogue, we must have conferences. one of the debates in the IGF was, should there be conclusions and recommendations of the IGF or not? Something as simple as that, which is still a debate. So how far should these conclusions and recommendations go? Or is it just an open forum for everyone to come and share? There is a value in that, by the way. I'm not underestimating. There's a value in just sitting down and having a debate and sharing it. But I think now we want to go a step further. And we want the multi-stakeholder dialogue in every single state to make a difference in policy making, at least in the level of recommendation and evaluation.
Thank you. I think I owe it to that cluster of people who gave you a round of applause when you mentioned about surveillance and privacy. As many of the audience will know, Frank LaRue wrote a report in early 2013 which seemed to be clairvoyant before we all knew the words Edward Snowden. And you pointed out the sort of surveillance capital, the extractive technologies that are taking an awful lot of data. You mentioned the importance of, openness and everyone, all of this information being available to all. But do we actually mean that? Do we really mean that all of the information about us should be available to governments in the name of security?
And my position is that no, that there is an element of privacy. Privacy actually has limitations, like most rights, not all rights, but including freedom of expression when it comes to Article 20 and hate speech and the protection of children, the protection of women against sexual harassment. But I believe that privacy can also have limitations, but within the democratic process. What is not allowed, and what is happening, is that security agencies by themselves and with no oversight are making the decision what they get, what type of information they can get and they can save. And they're getting the cooperation of some intermediaries for this as well. This is a breach of privacy, and I think this ultimately weakens our democratic system, and this makes us less safe than if we uphold democracy and the rule of law.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go to you, please, Frederick.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. My name is Frederick Dong, and this is not my first EuroDIG. But I'm very happy to welcome you in Brussels, my home city, and I love the logo. This is so Brussels. I'm working with the Internet Society. You know that ISOC is very committed to the success of EuroDIG. With a strong supporter, we are institutional partner. So we're all committed to the success of it. Why are we? Each time we're discussing in such an environment, we add another layer of good practices, of understanding of how it works in reality. And I trust this will be the case this time as well. EuroDIG is also more than just this event. For 3 years, 4 years now, I see a lot of different national IGF in Europe spreading all over the place. And I believe EuroDIG is key and instrumental here. So it's another good news. So let me make a comment in line with what Frank LaRue said and Lynn Saint-Amour a few minutes ago. We are what people might call a post-WSIS world. This is critical. I believe we have a global agreement and understanding that Internet governance is a key component on every discussion and conversation about Internet development. But now, in reality, how could we influence the process decision-making? We need to walk the talk now. We need really to develop and demonstrate that this model works with concrete outcome and solutions, and I trust that this EuroDIG might just be another step towards this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frederick. Lorena, is there anything happening on either the Twitter feed or the remote groups that we need to hear about?
Well, there is a lot happening in the Twitter feeds, as many of you can see on the screens. We are going to have all the screens everywhere, not also here, but also in the workshops. And we also have remote participants, but the remote participants are just chilling down and enjoying the whole debate. What I can perhaps summarize from the Twitter feed is that we're having two main conversations here. On the one side, we're having a conversation about the process, so about the importance of getting everyone into this conversation. So not only the privileged ones that are usually well known, but also youth, women, different ages, different regions, and also people that are not used to this sort of technicalities and semantic use of words that are not normal for the common people. So there were some demands about breaching this hermetism by using normal words, by realizing that many of the problems that we have in net politics are not technical problems, but political problems, social problems. There is a lot of encouraging to acknowledge also participants that are not only outside the internet, but also with disabilities, trying to use new technologies to also be part of the discussion. So we actually have, I mean, you can see and on the thread, it's a bit delayed just to give all of you more time to grasp the different discussions that we have. But you can follow up this part of the discussion. And the second part of the discussion is also about privacy. So there were many applauses and many retweets for Frank LaRue and for all other participants on site that were addressing privacy issues and also surveillance issues. That's
Thank you very much for that summary of a constantly moving field. One of the things that occurs to me listening to people's remarks as they're coming forward today is how different this dialogue feels to the internet governance dialogue in the UK, where I come from, which is very much preoccupied with issues of security in many ways. Could I just ask how many people here are from either from law enforcement or would view themselves as from the security sort of side of things? I can see 3, 4. And I think that this is something to bear in mind. How many people would view their working life or their professional life as occupied with issues of privacy, human rights, freedom of expression, and so on? Could you just raise your hands? So I think, you know, that the balance in the room is today, and I think that this very much is reflected in our agenda. We've got issues of trust, human rights, freedom of expression, the right balance with surveillance. But we should also be aware that to have the true multi-stakeholder, you know, to go to process for a minute, that to have the true multi-stakeholder balance, we ought to perhaps have a balance in the room of people from different professional interests as well. Because I'm sure, you know, all of us remember and regret the awful events in Brussels so recently. But to visitors coming into the city, the first thing we're seeing is trucks with soldiers in. On one level, we can understand where that comes from. On another level, does it make us feel frightened or does it make us feel secure? It's a very difficult balance to strike, and there are clearly some very, very evil and destructive forces at play. At the same time, here in Europe, we need to keep hold of our values as well. So sorry for that little reflections based on what we're hearing. Can I go to you, Man, and then I'm going to come to you.
Good. So let me first start by saying that it's my 5th EuroDIG in a row, and I started when I was 19. So I remember.
Wow. Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I forgot to ask everyone. When you start speaking, can you just give your name and just your, you know, affiliation very briefly? That helps people to place.
And 5 years I didn't learn to introduce myself every time I.
Everyone forgets.
I'm Anna. I am from Georgia. I work for a German international corporation, but at the same time I'm a student at the University of Köln.
Thank you.
Right, yeah. Now back. I remember Stockholm, 2012, whenever it was, and now I'm here, and I still here. I say that, and I keep amazing how this dialogue and this platform is becoming more and more inclusive and open, and it's experiments with different things. I mean, the EuroDIG, and you never get bored. I didn't get bored, so I love to see that it gathers even more people every year. New faces come, and it makes me so so glad to see that at one seat next to me, I can have a young person, that we have so many in the room this year too. And at the on another side, you might have a deputy whatever. So it's amazing. This is one thing, and also if you keep a close look how the whole sessions that awaits for you in the couple of hours, how they are organized, how these working groups that have nothing to do with, I don't know, maybe a secretariat, they just voluntarily do the work and do organize this session. So it's amazing to be here. This is first thing. Now, going back to the re-evolution thing that we all are discussing. So as a young person, I think that, and I want to embrace this digital evolution. I don't think it's a revolution. I think it's evolution. So I want to embrace it. And at the same time, it's a very thin line that we are walking, especially young people who have, who has to live on the internet so many years now. And it's a thin line that where we might be risking some of our values, valuable things, which, for example, is privacy, and the most important thing that we also care about. And I think it's a platform that makes young people as well as other people of these threats and risks that we will have to bear in mind while being online. And I think we all need to discuss it more and more. And
Anna, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
As a self-identified young person, because probably speaking for some of the older people in the room, I feel very young, but I think we have to respect the evidence. But as a young person, you know, older people can often characterize young people as sort of not really caring about privacy. I think for some people in an older generation, it seems really puzzling that young people appear to be willing to share things that older people would feel really embarrassed about sharing, and they do so publicly. And yet you say we care about privacy. Can you explain how the two things coexist?
We care about privacy? I don't know. My fellows wouldn't say so. They are happy to share whatever they have.
Who do they think they're sharing with?
Public. So what I say is those young people who are aware of privacy, it's a rare thing. That's why I say we need to get more young people involved, and we need to do on local level more awareness raising to protect our privacy, if that's our priority. So it's that's not the point I was raising. Being aware of privacy is a privilege, I think, for nowadays. And regarding old people, I didn't get the question.
Well, it's really the same sort of question. It's really, do you think it's a matter of awareness raising, or do you think it's actually that a newer generation have different attitudes about what they share? Or is it that they don't realize?
I think people and humans have always been social creatures, and we always like to share. Well, we don't share the same one and the same things. We haven't been sharing the same stuff always and in the same manners. But once we got these tools to share, that's why we became more social. It's not that it wasn't inside of us. I believe that 200 or centuries ago, people were willing to share things. That's why they would gather around the fire many centuries ago and share stories. That's why my grandma was organizing this, their friend circle. They would sit and talk and share. So we share, but nowadays it's become more because we have more tools, not only calling friends and bringing them, but we just, with few clicks, we can share as many things that we want.
Thank you. And I suppose the difference between your grandmother or perhaps you when you are a grandmother is that you will be looking back on the exact chat messages that you had now, and they will still be there.
Digital footsteps, yes.
That's right.
Good morning. My name is Bertrand Lachapelle. I'm the director of the Internet and Jurisdiction. I wanted to piggyback on what the exchange after Marco's comment on is the internet more centralized or more decentralized? And when you made the question to the room, I raised my hand twice, which
probably
may
right.
show that I'm a little bit confused. But the reason is that the way it has evolved is that it is at the same time more decentralized and more centralized. It's a power law distribution. And because the internet is growing and the services are growing, you have at the same time huge concentration on the one hand, and at the same time an increasing number of very small actors, so the long tail is expanding as well. And I was prompted to make this comment because it is related to the reconciliation that needs to take place between certain principles. And as Goran Marby was rightly saying earlier, that discussions at EuroDIG and in the IGFs is about shaping or framing the debates. In many cases, we have a tendency, and Frank Larry alluded to that as well, to frame discussions in terms of balancing acts. It's privacy versus security. It's the global internet versus the national jurisdictions. It's a lot of things.
One versus naught, right?
Yes. This is something that always looks like a zero-sum game at best, where you have to sacrifice something to get something else. What I just wanted to highlight is that this example about is the internet more centralized or more decentralized shows that both can be true at the same time, and that in many cases, what is at stake is to reconcile different objectives, to make sure that we get the best of a positive sum game. And when we are framing topics, it's usually it's better to say how can we combine, for instance, global accessibility to content and respect to national legislations regarding the diversity of what is allowed and what not allowed in countries. How do we protect privacy and protect the individual, protect people, basically, and provide law enforcement, you were mentioning, with the appropriate tools to fight abuses and misuse. Once again, just highlighting, whenever we discuss things, try to think in terms of reconciling and positive sum games rather than balancing and zero-sum games.
Thank you very much. Nan?
Good morning. My name is Jutta Kroll from the German Center for Child Protection on the Internet. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for starting the EuroDIG with an open mic session, because I think it's very encouraging and engaging people. The topic I would like to refer to is the Internet of Things. We've heard in some statements that it was already mentioned. And when we have a look at the Internet population, we see that 1 in 3 Internet users today is under the age of 18. When it comes to developing countries, it's 1 in 2. We see also that children are using the Internet at a very young age, starting from 1 year or from 3 months, as we heard. And in parallel, we see that many services and products are addressing directly this young target group. So I think it's necessary to consider how we can ensure the safety and the privacy of these young users, when in parallel we see the Internet of Things, and sometimes I prefer to say the Internet of Toys instead of things for the IoT, because there are so many of these services. With my With my organization, we have done some research into the principle of safety by design in the last year. And what we've learned, comparing to or seeing parallels to privacy by design, to the principle of accessibility by design, is we can learn that when the needs of certain target groups are taken in consideration from the very beginning of the development of the products and services, then the needs of these target groups can be better addressed. We can achieve better products and better services with the principle safety by design. So I would like to turn the attention to the technical aspects that can help us to ensure safety, not only focusing on security. I think if you have asked the question how many people feel related to safety, much more would have taken up their hands instead of the security people.
Ask that question. How many people are concerned about safety online?
So I think that
Thank you for
could be
raising
a
that.
future topic to talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And could you just, so there've been a couple of quite high-profile hacks of toys, internet-y toys, in the last year. Do you think that those, in a way, are helpful for manufacturers and IoT people who are bringing products to market to raise awareness of some of the safety issues?
Yeah, on the one hand, it's raising awareness on the safety issues, and the hacking can also help the product developers better to understand where they can make their products, then they are more secure products. But it's not only about raising awareness, it's somehow you could build in the safety into the products, that when it comes to the very young users, they just give away data without knowing that. Sometimes it also counts for older users. If you use Internet of Things, many products, you certainly don't know whether it gives away data that you produce or not.
Do you think that it's changing with manufacturers? I think that my impression is that a lot of Internet of Things, people are just desperate to get to market, and things like this might seem to hold them back or delay them or add cost.
Yeah, that's exactly what the principle of safety by design is about, because if you consider it from the very beginning of the idea for the product, it's much easier to build it in than when you go through the process. Then maybe you consider it could be hacked, and then you try to build in the safety afterwards. So it must be from the very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elvair Gilvadóttir, and I am the newly elected chair for the Steering Committee on Media and Information Society at the Council of Europe. I am at home the director of a media authority in Iceland. I am really happy to see how the EuroDIG has evolved. I came to the first EuroDIG in 2008 in Strasbourg, and it is really amazing to see the development, the participation, all these old and new faces that I'm seeing here now, so that is very, very good. It is working as a chair for an intergovernmental steering committee. We are dealing with many issues, for example, human rights aspects of algorithms, recommendation on internet intermediaries, updating a human rights guidelines of ISPs, things that are very important. But of course, this is not something that can happen in a vacuum just by talking to other governmental representatives. So this is the reason why I think it's extremely important to be here, to listen to other groups of people, to have a multi-stakeholder dialogue on all these issues, to hear what the industry is saying, the civil society, the academia, and so forth. And so that is kind of the purpose of being here, to listen and also to be inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we're now coming into the last 15 minutes of this open mic session, and I can see I've got at least 7 speakers. So can I just encourage you to be really brisk and crisp, and anybody who does want to make an intervention, this is your moment. I'm just having a look at the organisers. If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention that we need to cover, no, thank you. So please go ahead, and I'm going to come to you and then you.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, I'm going to be very brief. My name is Rabea Willers. I'm also working at the Council of Europe on matters related to democratic governance. So I found very interesting what the previous speaker has said about the Internet of Citizens. And I find that particularly striking also when we talk about the question, when we speak of multi-stakeholder governance in Internet governance, do we really mean the same thing? Because at the end of the day, each citizen is so much affected by the decisions that are taken in the context of multi-stakeholder governance and Internet governance, so that at the end of the day, each citizen is a stakeholder in Internet governance and should have a seat at the table in theory. So I think the buzzwords of participation, inclusiveness, and decentralization are extremely important. And I think that we should bring this democratic dimension a little bit higher on the agenda. Yesterday, I participated in a very interesting session, Knowing, where somebody suggested that libraries should be used as public spaces to also improve media literacy and to enable people in more decentralized spaces to participate in these matters. And I think that is a very interesting proposal. So I would really like to, I look forward to the discussions here, and I would really like to learn more about how can we decentralize internet governance and how can we make it more participatory. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Michael Ogia. This is my first EuroDIG, and I'm also here as part of the New Media Summer School. So I just want to make 2 quick points, both of which have to do with the evolution of the internet. The first one is about the process here at this EuroDIG. I really implore everyone to avoid what some people have already echoed, which is binary thinking. This whole idea, for instance, that cybersecurity and privacy are incredibly mutually exclusive, that to me is not, it just can't happen. If that's the case, then we need to work harder. We need to make more effective solutions. We need to do that by collaborating. We need to do that by working together. That's how we built the internet, by collaboration. So I say, if that's the case, let's keep doing it. And then the second point is for future EuroDIGs and other internet governance-related events, period. Quite frankly, something that I've become a broken record for is about mentoring, the power of mentoring. There is so much going on in this community. There are so many young people in particular that are not involved. They don't know how to get involved. I really implore this community, especially the decision makers, the policy makers, the people making, that are signing off the budgets, etc., that please prioritize youth mentorship. Take us under your wing, tell us and help us get involved, how to get into this process. It is absolutely critical to the future of this community and to the future of the internet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come to you and then to you.
I'm Richard Tilt from the Internet Watch Foundation, which is a UK organisation dedicated to combating the very serious problem of child sexual abuse material on the internet. I have sadly to report that the volume of such material seems to be growing. We are now dealing with about 100,000 reports per year, and of course each of those reports may contain tens, hundreds, thousands of images. So we're talking about a very large volume indeed. The material that we are dealing with and which we work on those 100,000, the vast majority we are able to get either removed or blocked, and that is our mission. But the material involves, the majority of it involves children under 12. Some of it will involve children as young as 2. It involves images of rape, torture, a variety of sexual perversions. It is very serious material. Of course, it is criminal, and we're instrumental in some cases in assisting the police with intelligence that can lead to prosecution. I make the intervention simply to remind people of the very serious abuses. I know there will be many people in the room who are aware of this, but there may be others who are not. As an organisation, we are absolutely committed to the principle of freedom of expression, but we believe that there need to be boundaries and limits to deal with what is actually an extremely serious problem.
Thank you very much. Richard, before you go, are you seeing, I know, conscious of time, but I'm just interested, we're talking about the revolution and the evolution, how is the sharing of child sexual abuse images, how is that how is that evolving? Where is it growing? You said it's growing, so how is it changing?
Well, it's growing on the public web. The other, of course, it's an evolution that's taken place over the last few years, is an increasing use by serious paedophiles of the dark web, so that there is an element of anonymity. Becomes much more difficult for us to get at it and tackle and trace.
Thank you. Yes, because the dark web isn't something that has been mentioned by many people and very much an evolving picture. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susanne Herring. I'm also a participant of the New Media Summer School and also a part of Network of European Digital Youth. And I would like to go back to the earlier discussion about privacy. And someone said young people don't care about privacy, and we would like to strongly oppose that. We care dearly about privacy. And when I say privacy, we're not just talking about sharing your meals on Instagram or things like that, but I mean actual privacy. And there are many young people all around the world who sometimes their lives hang on privacy, like civil rights activists. And I'm coming from Istanbul in Turkey, and like it's very real. And I can't say this enough. Privacy is really crucial and important, and it's definitely on youth's agenda, if I could say that. And we also have some key messages, and one of them was like mass surveillance violates human rights and cannot end cybercrime and terrorism. And alternative tools for law enforcement exist, which are compatible with human rights, and governments should not collect personal data in bulk. There are other things we care about, like geo-blocking and open access, youth participation, affirmative action in multi-stakeholderism, and of course, net neutrality. But since we have a short amount of time, I won't get into all that. And yeah.
Thank you.
We care about privacy.
Thank you very much. Okay, should we do boom, boom, boom like that?
My name is Dan Wall. I'm campaigns manager with the Union of Students of Ireland, but I'm here with the New Media Summer School as well, so I'm a young person. I think there's a thrown around comment around the attitude of young people towards privacy. The word attitude is a weapon used to beat down young people and put us in a corner, to say, yeah, it's their attitude, that's how they are, let's not listen to them. But let's talk about the word attitude a little bit. Our attitude comes from our environment. Our environment, when we're young, when we're children, our schools and at home. Our attitudes are formed by information and education. Maybe it's about time we start talking about privacy and the internet in education. But by discussing the idea of privacy, not talking to strangers online as well as offline, then our attitudes will change, and then, of course, our behaviours will change, and then we maybe perceive privacy as a bigger issue, because we do, and we've seen that. But it's time we actually made it a wider issue for young people. And it's a great session on empowerment through education, which I'll be attending and be very vocal about. I'm already vocal on Twitter about young people. And if anyone wants to have a conversation about how about us as policymakers, decision makers, how do we actually instill privacy into education? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, both of the last speakers, for coming back so strongly with a voice in favour of privacy from young people. I'm sure we'll be discussing more in the next day or two about whether people's what they're doing online is changing in the light of what we now know and how we're evolving our response. Mark and then Nigel.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Carvel. I'm from the United Kingdom Government's Department for Culture, Media and Sport. We lead on internet and ICT's policy, digital strategy, and many of the issues that are going to be covered here at EuroDIG are factored into government policy making in the UK. And I wanted to pick up on the point raised by Lynn St. Amour earlier on, that it's vitally important for these multi-stakeholder fora and processes to have the participation of governments. We from the UK are here. Actually, there are three of us. There's my colleague Paul Blaker and my colleague Nick Shorey. And I've attended most EuroDIGs, not all of them, but most of them. And there are a number of other government representatives here, but probably not enough. It's, as Elfa from Iceland described, it's important for us to be here to learn, to understand the perspectives from other stakeholder constituencies, to hear about what's coming down the track, to understand the points of contention with government policy. So it's vitally important that we are here. And I would invite the non-government stakeholders here, from private sector, from civil society, from consumer groups, rights groups and so on, who have the opportunity to interact with government at the national level, to impress on their interlocutors in government the importance of participating here in EuroDIG, of supporting national IGFs, which will contribute to the EuroDIG in the European context, which in turn contributes to the global IGF. And government people should be there at the global IGF, just as they should be here. Every government should be here. That's the key message I would like to convey. And I hope the stakeholders here will impress that message on their interlocutors in government for the future, to ensure the success and the evolution of the multi-stakeholder intergovernance environment.
Thank you very much. So the message from Mark is all governments should be here, whether or not they're members of the European Union.
That's right, and we will continue to be here in the future, whatever happens on the 23rd.
Thank you. Nigel.
Yes, thank you very much. Nigel Hickson, ICANN, and it's a great pleasure to follow Mark. I used to be able to say I'm from the British government. So, all governments should be here. Yes, indeed, all governments should be here. But are all stakeholders in government-led institutions? Where are all the stakeholders in the government group of experts discussing cybersecurity? Where are all the stakeholders in some of the European discussions that take place on surveillance, on cybersecurity and privacy? Yes, we want all stakeholders to be in the room, but not all stakeholders are always in the room. In ICANN, on internet governance, and ICANN is just a part of the ecosystem, multi-stakeholderism is a sort of given. Everyone comes, everyone talks, everyone takes part. The Internet Governance Forum is an incredible vehicle for multi-stakeholder participation. But this is not replicated across all areas. And surely we are losing the value of some of the input from the stakeholders, some of the knowledge, some of the experience in some of these issues if we discuss cybersecurity, if we discuss surveillance, if we discuss privacy behind closed doors, then sometimes we must be losing the expertise and the knowledge of stakeholders. So I think at this IGF, let's debate these issues. Let's debate cybersecurity. Let's debate privacy. And of course young people care about privacy. Of course young people care about everything. Go to all the IGFs we've had. Look what happened in Net Mondial. The young people came. The young people debated the future of the internet. Yes, everyone cares, but people need a voice. And the institutions, the governments, the international government organizations need to listen to those voices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So who says English men aren't passionate? This very timely wraps up the initial open mic in time for coffee, which I think is a priority, certainly for me. Thank you deeply, thank you for all of your participation here. It was so good to see so many voices. Oh, we've got one more. Very quick, do you want to make an intervention? Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Narina. I am from Armenia. We have been working in the field of young people and children, and we have been trying to protect young people from harm on the internet. And since today we are speaking about digital evolution and digital revolution, I would like to just call everyone, let's think and develop and adopt a comprehensive approach which will help us to respect both children's opportunities as well as their protection from harm. Let's not forget about safety matters when we provide children with ICTs, and at the same time, let's prioritize children's rights, their right to information, right to self-expression, and right to participation when we develop safety practices.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think that does bring our session to an end. Wolf, did you want to say something? So, it's now the coffee break until 11:30. I'm sorry for people who wanted to say something. We have run out of time, but I really thank you for all of your inputs, and particularly those who haven't been to an IGF before. You're all welcome, and this is a dialogue, so let the dialogue continue over the next 2 days.